G'day guys, Toward the Games, Brisbane 2032. Welcome back, Lutzy, with Chris Jones, the editor of the Courier Mail, for episode, 13 in my mind. Could be anything though.
Yeah, I think it is 13, Lutzy, and I love your shirt. I really do. It's the Bing Duen, the official mascot of the Beijing Winter Games.
Obviously, yes, which was a bear.
It looks like a panda.
Panda bear, I'm going to say.
There's some weird shapes going on your tight shirt there, but...
I've never worked out just below my left nipple there who the red friend is. Oh, that's a birthmark. Sorry. That's going through my shirt.
Bing Duen. How good were the Winter Olympics?
Yeah.
It seems like a long time ago.
It was good. It was... I sort of, week and a half was good. I thought the last few days were stretched out a little bit too long for me.
It's because the curling ended, wasn't it?
The curling ended. Yeah. Ice hockey was on
late. It doesn't hold your attention to the end, does it?
It doesn't.
The Winter Games.
It doesn't. They just, I feel like the aerial's finished and but it was good. It had me for at least 7 days, maybe 10.
Snowboard cross was good as you. Disappointing result for the Australians, but that is a good sport.
Yeah, we were sort of, in the end, what do we end up with? Four medals or something? It was our best... equal best, but geez, when you look at the potential we had, it could have been double that if a couple of athletes hadn't have. It's a tough word. I don't use that around Susie O'Neill. She slaps me.
The only awkward thing I had about the games was this was in China, obviously, which has its own challenges in terms of being an open nation.
Yes.
But
so an open-minded nation or just an open nation?
I think of the right words.
Yes.
To, be undiplomatic.
I was letting you hang there, by the way.
But the sort of there was a lot of love for Vladimir Putin from Xi Jinping during the games. He was his guest at the opening ceremony, and
was Putin at the opening ceremony?
Yeah, and it just reminds you, doesn't it, of these how much things have changed. I don't want to get too deep here, Lutzy, but 3 weeks later, there's Russia.
There's a war
having started a war.
How strange. So Putin was in Beijing a month ago?
Yeah, and then went back to do a bit of war planning, and off he goes. Look, it's good. I think I've said before that it always does strike me strange that the International Olympic Committee has allowed Russian athletes to continue to be in the games. Even though they're under the Russian Olympic Committee,
the ROC, we had to call them the ROC in Tokyo.
And what we've seen since the war has started is a series of other athletics and so on, banning Russian athletes. It's almost Belarus as well.
Most sports now, as you said, I know that there's several like the World Athletics Champs, for instance, in Eugene, Oregon, which I'll be attending this year. There'll be no Russian acts, and I don't think there'll be any ROC athletes. It's my understanding. It's just a blanket ban of any Russian athletes.
So it'll be interesting to see what the IOC does. Going forward, whether this. I don't know. I just think everyone else is sending a really strong message. And I think it's probably time that the IOC, joined. Anyway,
I think so. Yeah, I guess what happens over the next few weeks and
probably doesn't matter so much,
months.
but it's symbolic.
It is indeed, and they've taken away his black belt in karate. Putin.
Oh, did they?
Yep, the karate international. He's got a black belt apparently. That's gone.
I reckon he still might wear it at home.
He just wears that. Holding a bottle of vodka, sharing it with a brown bear. That's Saturday night at the
Now, it's been 3 weeks since we've been here, Lutzy, and we had to take last week off because of the flood emergency. But prior to that, our special guest was the Premier and Minister for the Olympics, not yet Paralympics, Anastasia Palaszczuk.
What were your thoughts? We haven't had a chance really to debrief, so to speak, since then. What were your thoughts on the Premier's comments and contribution to podcast 12?
The bit that really stuck with me, Lutzy, was when she said that she has to be on the organising committee herself to make sure, she said, that the organising committee does what she signed up to, which seemed a little bit strange to think that the committee wouldn't do what she'd signed up to.
Yeah.
She did
say that, didn't she?
Yeah, it was a strange way of presenting the need for her to be on the committee, because I still maintain that who would want to actually be I bang on about this all the time. Who would want to be the chair of that 22-person committee when you've got not only you've got John Coates and the Premier sitting at that same table?
Yes.
I think it diminishes the strength of that chair when you've got both those other people on there. It feels like it might just sort of get in the way of decision making.
2 litres equals none.
Yeah, and it's not a crack at the Premier or John Coates, but what you want out of this committee is that it gets stuff done.
Yeah.
I mean, we joke about being just under 3,900 days. Well, since we've been joking about that, we're now down under 3,800 days.
Yes.
And nothing's happened. 3,780 something as we record this.
And I mean, let's just put a line in the sand. Say somewhere at the midway point is when most of the decisions have to be being made, as far as where we build stadiums and venues and things like that. That's we're talking probably in the next 3 or 4 years where the big decisions have to be made. So it's not actually that far away. Really,
we're coming up to. We'll be sitting here in not many episodes from now saying it was a year ago that we were given the games, and we've lost a year. Like, what have we done? We haven't even managed to set up a committee.
Nope.
It still hasn't met. Now the Premier said 3 weeks ago this committee would be decided in March and have their first meeting in March. Well, now it's the 9th or something of March, and nothing's happened.
Yeah, it seems
but the short list of people has been interviewed for the 5 in inverted commas independents.
Yep.
But there just does not seem to be any sort of rush in any way to take advantage of the unique opportunity that we've got 11 years. We had 11 years till curtains up.
Can we call them the Avengers? The famous 5. Like they're almost like Marvel sort of, Universal sort of superstars. You know what I mean? Like
we could. Maybe we should wait to see who they are first. See whether
there's been some dud Marvels as well. All right, Aquaman never took off.
No, it wasn't a great.
Did he?
Wasn't
so we can have bad ones in there, but do you think?
Should we give each of the 5 make each of them a superhero?
Yes, we'll give them their own monikers.
Okay, yeah, I'm on board with that.
Okay, I like that. Do you think something which seemed to me wasn't set in stone, which seemed to be almost in a John Coates way, it seemed like the Premier said that it's almost impossible she's not on the board moving forward. And in fact, even if she lost government, she'd still be on the board. Did you get that feeling?
I don't think the Premier has ever even considered not being in government.
Okay, if you take that. Yeah.
But no, she did say that the political appointments...
Yes, it was 2 and 2.
...would come off.
Yes, 2 of them.
So any politician, she said, would come off because she said the school captain of Nudgee in 1991, Ted O'Brien...
So Super Ted would go if...
And the Federal Minister for Sport, Richard Colbeck, would go.
Yes.
But... If there was a change of government at the election... So, therefore, one would... it would be very strange for Anastasia Palaszczuk to stay on there should she lose government in how long that is, 2.5 years.
Yeah, I just felt like she said something along the lines of no.
Maybe she'll
that
move
wouldn't happen, but that would. You know
maybe
what I mean?
She'll insert a few John Coates style clauses.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like
that anyone with the initials AP and last name Palaszczuk has a seat in perpetuity.
I felt like it was.
There's no upper house in Queensland, Lapsy.
Yeah, I know.
This
could
that. Easily be passed.
I know.
We'll keep it close.
Can we just keep that audio? Make a note. Whoever's editing this now, I don't even know who is. Just take a note of that because I feel like that last minute we just spoke about is going to come back and not bite us on the arse, but like
a bit of late night legislation.
Yes, something that will come back.
Committee member for life.
Yes. So anyway, we'll see about that. Now we do have legacy committee chat. We're going to talk about a little bit later on because the legacy committee. Apparently, according to you, has been furthered, has it?
Yes. I don't want to. Let's
save it. That's a tease. I do want to talk, if we can, in this first break, a little more about something we spoke about in the Premier's chat 3 weeks ago, in episode 12, I think. Again, I'm not sure about the episode numbers, but I was speaking about the International Broadcast Centre as being one of the key sort of areas of the Olympic Games that I feel like previously has served a purpose purely to do its obviously primary job, be a warehouse for international broadcasters that have bought rights to the Olympic Games at a considerable amount of money, NBC being the biggest of them, and to be able to broadcast from their own studios in a facility which has been marked as South Bank 2.0 on the banks near the old Peter's, whatever the hell it is, Paul's factory on the bend of the river.
Yeah, a little bit further
West
around,
End,
actually.
between South Bank and West End. Is that right?
Yeah, the next little section there along Montague Road.
Yeah, okay. So my point was...
The glass factory. Visi.
The Visi factory. Yeah, right. So that's great. That's going to be a green space that we'll utilise as the IBC during the Olympic Games, and then that will be obviously converted into a very livable, beautiful space for the people of Brisbane as a real legacy piece moving forward, aka South Bank 1. Okay, that's great. My point is the IBC itself during the Olympic Games, and I'm pushing back to one of my first experiences with media was at the World Expo here in Brisbane at South Bank in 1988, the Channel 10 Pavilion, the Channel O Pavilion, or the Channel X Pavilion, whatever it was called at that point, had a viewing facility around the studio where you could watch the news, and there was also a viewing platform where you'd walk around and could see the newsroom and see the magic being made as it happened, which was a pretty fascinating thing, I thought, and pretty unprecedented for that at that time in the late 80s. That sort of made me think, and having been to Dubai for the most recent World Expo, which is still running for the next couple of weeks in Dubai at the moment, the potential there to create a viewing platform and a visitor experience around the International Broadcast Centre, where you can quite literally walk around a platform and go from Spanish television to Swedish television to Channel 7 or Channel 9 studios, whoever's got the rights in 2032, the Australian studios. NBC traditionally has had an incredibly vast setup at these international broadcast centres, taking up about half of the space. I think in Sydney in 2000 it was about 2 football fields big. It was NBC's warehouse space,
really?
to give you the amount of input that NBC have into the Olympics. But having worked in Sydney in 2000 in the International Broadcast Centre, it was fascinating to have access to that and to be able to literally see the world make its news and make its broadcasting. And second to that, then create a space, keeping in mind that every major sort of broadcast organisation in the world is there, here in Queensland, in Brisbane, for those weeks, to have a expo-style pavilion showcasing the latest we have to offer to these cameras every single day, and hopefully filling some of their spaces in the ways of tourism and sustainability and mobility and all those key buzzwords that we're using over the next 10 years, and what makes our state great, and then selling that to the world, which I think has been an underutilised I guess thing in the past as well. So
I love this idea, Lutzi.
That's one of my key creative ideas.
You want to create opportunities for the people of Brisbane to experience the games, and that doesn't need to just be going to the stadiums or the live site. How else do we bring the games to life? A
secondary level of interaction, but which is outside the square. That's never been done before.
Because otherwise, you're going to have a big shed down there at where Visi is now on Montague Road. Floods every 11 years
with a big barbed wire fence around it.
11 years? Oh, it should be okay. 2033 should be the next flood, so we should be okay.
Oh, God, don't even go there.
But you're going to have a big shed otherwise, where you just got a whole lot of journalists hanging around at. But this way, if you turn it outside and people can look in...
It's like it's a theme park. It's an Olympic. It's a broadcasting Olympic theme park, and as you say, we can't
like
compete.
In Martin Place, where the TV station, Sydney, that's what have the.
It's like that, but on steroids, where you can go to every single. And steroids isn't the right word. SADA-proof steroids. That we can showcase two things. We can showcase what we have, and then we can also open it up to the people of Brisbane. Where and the Premier made a good point where I said I came in steaming hot to episode 12, saying, it's going to be a sham. We're going to embarrass ourselves. We've got this $5.5 billion stadium, the SoFi Stadium SoFi Stadium rather in Los Angeles, which has been paid for by the owner of the LA Rams, which is going to be the 2028, presumably the opening closing ceremony and track and field venue for the games. And it looks like something out of Total Recall or The Fifth Element. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, we go from that to our little $1 billion Gabba. And we're next.
Which apparently is going to be built for 100 years.
Yes.
According to the Premier.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to take forever. And that concerned me. And on some level, she said, look, we're not trying to compete with that. And I sort of balked when she said it. But then I thought, you know what, we can't. No one's going to pump in another $5 billion. So we've got to...
What do you compete on? what is the authentic thing that Brisbane can compete on? It can't. You want to compete on authenticity and friendliness and all these things that make Brisbane and Queensland unique.
The creative of being able to expose in a positive way those elements is what we can do, which doesn't going to cost an arm and a leg, and that means creatively we offer a second level of interaction for people here and for people watching on our TV screens on around the world on what makes us great, because we do have the product. We're not polishing a turd here. Like, Southeast Queensland is genuinely one of the best places in the world to live in such as, value for money, quality of life, weather. The last 3 weeks, obviously, or the last 2 weeks, notwithstanding massive floods that we're having every 4 or 5 years now. But apart from that, we have the groundwork here, the foundations. We have the product that if we can get the right people into these areas, the games are going to be great. The athletics is going to be great. The swimming is going to be great. The venues should be pretty great with what we have to offer. If we can take it to another level creatively, I think we can offer something which LA, despite their billions, and Paris, despite the fact that it's Paris, won't. Potentially, we can take it to another level.
Couldn't agree more. And congratulations to those who are playing podcast bingo and you've been waiting for the word turd.
Yes.
Bingo.
In the same sentence as polish. So there you go. And I've got a short list at the moment. Yes. I haven't even spoken to these people yet. I'm looking at Brisbane people, creative people, different areas of the arts. I'm thinking an alumni of this podcast, Trent Dalton, a passionate Brisbane person who thinks outside the square with his thoughts. I think Trent might be
the most passionate Brisbane person.
I agree, and he's one of the most creative people that I certainly know. JC from Powderfinger. Mm-hmm. He's been a game changer on Brisbane's music scene, creating venues for bands somewhere between the big stadiums and the little sort of bars we have. He's creating opportunities there. He's an outside thinker. He's a rock star. He's a legend. There's other people I'm thinking of as well in aviation. People like Paul O'Brien, who you may or may not know, that has a company called Avmin that has become the world leader in logistics for celebrities, amongst others, that are coming to Australia and logistically getting them here on jets. And when they hit the ground, where are they? Through quarantine, he was the guy that would get Mark Wahlberg where he needed to stay for movies and things like that. These are people that think outside the square, that homegrown talents that we have that I think collectively could produce something pretty special. So anyway, off the back of last week, I don't think I'm speaking too much out of school from 3 weeks ago to say that after our conversation with the Premier, there's been a bit of talk about let's have a chat about this creative task force and let's get that started. So that's great. And what's also great is something you kicked off in the months leading up to that with the Premier is the Legacy Committee, which started as just an idea in Chris Jones's head essentially and is now
it's real
gone to another level. So let's take a quick break and come back and talk about that in just a moment. Tour the Games, Brisbane 2032. Lutzy and Chris Jones with you once again. Thanks again. If you haven't already subscribed or you haven't told people about this that you think might be interested in it, it's an Olympic podcast, obviously, around Brisbane's successful bid for the 2032 Games. It's more than that. We talk about Brisbane, Southeast Queensland, and the events that are going to shape this part of the world in the next 10 years and beyond. And when we say and beyond, I remember the first time I heard of this concept that you had, Chris, was the, what did you call that, a symposium or something you had, which I couldn't get to because I forgot about it?
No, well, 500 other people managed to make it, but you had some, I don't know, you had to do something at a bowls club or something.
And then that got cancelled and I forgot and I could have gone and I didn't. Anyway, but I regret not going.
Fine, mate. It was also broadcast on Sky News, but no big deal.
Okay, I did miss that. I apologise. And you have the next one, I'm coming. But it was you, it was several other people.
It was a great conversation. So it was part of the Courier Mail's Future Brisbane series, our Olympics opportunity. The concern that we have editorially at the Courier Mail, Lutzy, is that the government, and you heard a fair bit of this with the Premier last time, sees this as 2 weeks of sport plus the 2 weeks of the Paralympics, which is also sport, so 4 weeks of sport in 11 years from now. And that's what they've got their focus on, and that's why the Premier's so desperate to sit on the organising committee so that she gets to play around with the IOC and build out the games. But the big missing thing here is this will never again happen to our city, our region, and our state ever.
Nope.
We're never going to have the Olympics again. So what are we doing to make sure that we do not miss the opportunity for legacy out of this, once in a forever opportunity? So that's what we put on. That was the big ask during the Future series of the Premier, is that she creates something that sits outside of the IOC-led BOCOG process, so to inform government, but also to connect up the thinking out of the private sector with government, so that we can all get behind a common shared vision for the legacy of these games. Long way of saying, she signed up to that, and they are now out. She said last time it had to go through Cabinet. A couple of days later, Lutzi,
yes,
they announced that the Legacy Committee, the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games Legacy Committee, would be established, and that 12 community members are being sought from across Queensland to represent on this committee, including, I thought this was really interesting, a young person aged between 16 and 18 to sit on that committee.
Okay, so school-aged.
Which someone who will therefore be, late 20s by the time the games roll around, which is terrific. So the areas that they've talked about is accessibility and inclusion, arts, culture, to your point, business, industry, trade, community sport, environment, sustainability, health and well-being, innovation, small business, tourism and events. And look, I think this is a great thing. I do a little bit concerned, Lutzi, that if it's created within government, that it just it meets a few times a year and nothing happens.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that we're keeping the conversation going alongside this. But I think it's a great thing. They're out there looking for these people now, and hopefully we end up with a great group of people who are going to be able to do this work to make sure that we don't miss this unique opportunity. Do
you see the majority of the people making up this being from a more of a business sort of level? Like I can think of immediately of people that have influence in I guess infrastructure and things like that on with the stuff we're doing now. That's not going to think short term. Obviously, the key here is you don't want people that are going to politicise it. Obviously, because in 3 years or 6 years maximum, they're not in the game anymore, and they don't really care beyond that. That's a very cynical way to look at politics, but there's a few out there
also
that
realistic.
Are like that, exactly. So you want people that, like, for instance, and I think that what I was talking about before sort of crosses over with legacy a bit. At World Expo, and Ted O'Brien, who's been pushing very hard for the some sort of rail sort of situation, making it an easier destination between Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast. Coming back from the Dubai World Expo, and there's two genuine Richard Branson, or the Branson company, whatever, is building or working on one at the moment, and there's another one, I think it was in the Belgium pavilion, doing it as well. It's not really rail. It's a zero energy, zero what do you call it? Emissions, emission transport system,
just
fast
like
rail.
Hyperloop,
I think it's called, and it's essentially you're sitting in a sort of a cabin with 16 people, and the example they showed of the Australian leg of that would have you between Sydney and Melbourne in 58 minutes, quicker than a plane, and it's just in a very sustainable, again, zero emissions tube, if you like, a tube which runs above ground for the most part between, for instance, if it was Brisbane and the Gold Coast, it'd just be running, I guess, along
maybe all the money we're saving on the stadium.
Yeah, and well, the way they sold it at the World Expo was that it's a cost effective way of doing it. Whether the technology's around for 2032, I'm not sure, but at the very least, speaking of a legacy committee, these are the sorts of projects and the people that you need to be able to look at.
Look, and just at the most basic level, thinking about different precincts, like somebody around town's pushing this idea of a New York style High Line, for Brisbane. That just links up, from the Gabba. You sort of just go above ground with a sort of landscaped walkway. Goes above the hospital there, links up with the Arbour at South Bank, down the other end, you then go on, over the river, back up behind, or to Roma Street, and then back up behind Grammar, along Victoria Park there, and off.
Right.
So you create these incredible things that are legacy. Whether the connection of the coast is important, but also how do we, in 20 years' time, 30 years' time, 50 years' time, look back and we say we had the Olympics.
Yep.
What else did we get out of the Olympics that we wouldn't have otherwise got? I think the critical thing, and probably being blokes, Slutsy, we always think about infrastructure, concrete and steel and landscaping and stuff. But also, what other parts of legacy are there that we can finally address? What opportunity is there through the next 11 years to better understand, share and own, I suppose, the story of our Indigenous people?
Yes.
Is there? We know how much Kathy Freeman in the 2000 games did for reconciliation. What's the next 10 years of that look like off the back of leading into a game? Yeah, once you start to think about legacy, your mind does open up, and I can guarantee you that the contract signed with the IOC and the instructions of the IOC in terms of putting on 4 weeks of sport in 11 years' time, 10 years' time now, will not go anywhere outside of that lane. And that's why these sort of conversations and this group is really important. And it's so important that it doesn't just become another sort of government committee that gets stagnated, but that it actually is at the leading edge of the conversation. Yeah,
and I think like Sydney, if you take Sydney as an example, do you look at Sydney, which I think was already, the city was already almost completely, Brisbane's still an emerging city. It is. We're still growing. We've still got new suburbs. Sydney really, in essence, in 2000, was already a famous city of the world, probably our most famous international city of the world. I look back, I don't go to Sydney now 22 years later and think, wow, you can see how the Olympics impacted this. I mean, the major hub was Homebush, which is an area I'd rather not go to ever again in my life.
Yeah.
Which is not a good thing, I don't think. I don't think that it's actually a place I dread going to cover athletics or go to a football match. Yeah. Honestly, I'd rather not. I'd rather sit at home, watch on TV. It's not a great place. Nothing's really happened there. And outside of that, I can't think of going around Sydney City and thinking, oh my God, that wouldn't have been there without the Olympics.
No, and that's what I mean. That's if I think about Sydney, what I think there's two. I feel like it was the moment, two parts, and neither of them involve a bit of concrete or steel. I think Sydney was the moment that Australia grew up. Okay. That we stopped asking celebrities when they come to Australia, what do you think of Australia?
Yep.
And we started accepting that we're just a country and we're a world, we're part of the world, and we don't need to pretend to be little old Australia anymore.
Yes.
I think there was a real growing up moment out of Sydney. And I think as part of that also, it was during that time where we had the big debate over reconciliation. Remember, the reconciliation marches around that time, and obviously leading into then Kathy Freeman being the story of the games, lighting the flame and then winning a gold medal, being the only person still to have done both those things at a single games.
Yeah.
You just think the opportunity for Brisbane is just so huge here, and like I say, we just don't want to miss it, do we?
Yeah, and I there's another buzzword this is going to be an important podcast for reaching back in and thinking, oh my God, they're like Nostradamus, these guys. And I keep talking about World Expo, but
talk really vaguely.
Yes, we do. Yes, it might happen. Oh, we said that.
Somebody will win the 100 meters.
Yes, but the key word that, and I stress everyone to go out and maybe Google mobility. Yeah. World Expo. Mobility is the buzzword at World Expo in almost every country in the world right now. Sustainability, I think, is on a similar level. But mobility, which is not all about just transport. It's about how we move as a people, as a city. How do we get around? Yes, but it reminded me then you talking about those overhead sort of pathways getting around the city as opposed to just building, underground tunnels and things like that. Actually utilising the environment that's a concept of mobility.
Yeah.
How as a family we relate as mobility, like it's as a tight unit, as a community, things like that. So mobility is a word we have to get our head around, and we have to make sure we're on top of that, because that's the way the world is. Well, that's the word that the world is listening to at the moment.
Have you applied for a job on the Legacy Committee?
I haven't. I think I'm pushing more for this creative task force, to be honest with you. I mean,
yeah.
I can think
so enough committees, we need a task force now.
I don't know the difference between a task force and a committee. I actually Googled task force to see what it means. But there's other people I know that I think would be better placed on the Legacy Committee. And another guy's Anthony Ryan, who's just now the new CEO of the Brisbane Economic Development something or other. But he's a guy that passionate Brisbaneite again, and has out of the box thinking about how good this city could be in 50 years. And these are the people that we have to find. And we have them. We do have them, but we've got to have the right people finding them. It's the same as all the committee chat we talk about can go one of two ways. They can become air, sort of hot air, and just, let's just go through a process. Or all these things we can speak about can be heading in the one direction and set up a magnificent
And again,
future.
the critical part of that is to get government aligned with the private sector, and probably vice versa. Is make sure that everyone's pulling in the same direction.
Correct. Okay, another short break. Back to wrap things up in just a moment. Toward the games, Brisbane 2032. Hey guys, Lutzy and Chris Jones.
Oh, I've just had a thought, Lutzy.
Yes,
the
Jonesy.
Olympics is about sport.
Yeah, we do forget that on occasion. We haven't even mentioned sport. And can I just say, though, as we get closer, there'll be entire episodes we'll be talking about athletes and selections and things like that, because that's something we're both
They have done a very good thing. The Premier mentioned this briefly, and we've spoken about it so many times, is they've started this talent search for the young athletes that they're running out of the Academy of Sport. I've actually even heard this morning, Lutzy, from Chelsea Waugh at the Academy of Sport, who is leading this search. She was the one, as we keep talking about, who led this search for UK sport in the lead up to London, and was the secret to their success, where you just go and find kids and figure out what sport they're best for and support them the whole way through to Brisbane 2032. And so that's going to be exciting as we go through the next 10 years.
Huge.
We'll try to get her on we've got to get Chelsea on the podcast.
I would love to speak to her to get her insight from 2012 onwards. And I completely forget. The first time you mentioned she was 2012, like I just and she was working with the UK, I just assumed she was from the UK and lived over there. And then people reminded me that, I think Susie O'Neill reminded me, saying, Chelsea was at the QAS when I was there. Like, Chelsea's roots are very much dug into Queensland sport, and I think it's a prime example of a local talent that has become a world leader. Yeah, not literally, not Putin style. I mean, so a world leader in her specific area. You know what I mean? And then is coming back, and a great opportunity to get those people back to say, okay, now let's take off and let's push towards 2032. But that's huge.
Well, we'll get Chelsea. We'll get Chelsea on.
Yeah, okay.
I think that'd be a great conversation.
Absolutely.
And it gets us back into what matters, which is, we talk about all this other stuff. What matters is sport. Now, we heard John Coates.
Sports.
He was talking about sports, wasn't he? He was talking about the additional sports. He mentioned T20.
I like the idea of that. I do. That is the problem that Coatesy mentioned about the fact that just the sheer numbers of athletes has to stay under a certain amount. Because the Olympics is trying not to get bigger, it's trying to maintain that sort of level, and that requires probably every nation, or however many nations, say it's 16 nations competing, would each have 50 odd athletes in male and female divisions or whatever. So that creates a problem. But T20 would be pretty exciting, and I can see obviously with the massive Asian market and Indian, Pakistan market, and even UAE market there.
Imagine an India.
That's big numbers.
India,
big TV numbers.
Pakistan T20 game in the Olympics.
Yeah.
That'd get a lot bigger than that.
Yeah. So that's that. I can sense of surely that's going to be one of the front runners for what they're talking about.
They have to do it like the soccer, whatever they call it, the football, where you play it around the country.
Or do they lose another team sport as the other option?
Like what are you thinking?
Well, I'm suggesting that I don't want to get too political here, but soccer's a little vague. It's under 23, isn't it? It's not exactly the pinnacle of world football, is it? the Olympics.
I'm not sure if you could take football out of the Olympics.
Is it still 2 players over 23?
That'd be quite a bold move, but there's a decision for the BOCOG to make.
Well, these are the decisions that have to be made, right?
Nobody really cares about soccer in Australia. Therefore, we're going to go with cricket.
Not under 23 soccer, is what I'm saying to you. Like, well, and given the fact that if I go to watch Argentina play Cameroon in the final,
yes,
which I think I did in 2000. Not Cameroon, won in 2000.
Yep.
I sat there and watched that. I mean, I wasn't going down the player list going, oh my god, that's old mate from Man United.
Yeah.
It was under 23 rookies, which again, fantastic. Olympics, equal opportunity for everyone.
Yeah. I know you like your golf, but golf and tennis are also strange Olympic sports, aren't they? They don't really capture your imagination.
No, golf is one that
It sort of crept in there at some point and nobody noticed.
My thing with golf, Chris, is, and I say this with a degree of sarcasm and exaggeration, but I'm thinking, look, no one's looking at the golf and thinking, okay, this is like the 5th major. Okay, it's just the golf at the Olympics. Okay, we watch it. Oh, that's good. Cameron Smith is playing. That's excellent. I wasn't expecting that. And oh my god, who's another great player? Tiger. He probably wouldn't play, but if Tiger did play, that'd be amazing. So I've got a spectacle. I just don't think. The main reason, if we do have golf in the 2032 Olympics, is so we can showcase a magnificent backdrop. And I'm not sure that the Gateway Bridge is that backdrop if RQ, Royal Queensland, is the selected course for the Olympics.
No.
The exaggeration point is like, if I had it my way in a perfect world, I'd build a temporary course in the sand dunes from Coolangatta to Currumbin.
Well, exactly. Coolangatta.
And that's I'm being obviously being silly there.
We don't have a Bunboogle type golf course, do we?
But if we're going to do it, at least
maybe we should just
utilise a magnificent...
play it in Tassie.
Yeah, well, there's beautiful courses in Australia. Well, there is, yeah. Okay, Tassie would have some magnificent,
I think
links-style cliff-top courses. I'd imagine. I know it's
imagine making it to the Olympics and you go, Brisbane 2032. I get to go to Launceston.
Well, yeah. But having said that, what's it do as far as Queensland? Okay, Queensland tourism, obviously, it's not great.
Not even Launceston,
Tasmania,
up here.
But on a larger scale, it's like, have a look at how diverse this magnificent place is.
Isn't the issue? Yeah, that's true. And the backdrop's going to be amazing. We're talking about
Hamilton Island has a golf course, which apparently is every one of my wankerish friends that's played there says it's magnificent. And oh my god, you hit over the ocean on the 14th and all this sort of business. Have it there, and then the golf purists are going, oh no, it's too short par 4s. Who cares?
Yeah, well,
it's Olympic golf.
This is the problem, though, isn't it, with golf and tennis and soccer? If the Olympic gold medal is not the pinnacle, that's probably a pretty good sign that you got to question that sport's involvement in the Olympics, because surely the Olympics gold medal needs to be the thing. You could name every Wimbledon winner, right?
Yeah.
But Olympic gold medal,
of course not.
It's not even.
Of course not.
It's not even on the same scale. And
so is the process then is okay, because then you've got national sporting organisations that go, hang on a second,
yes,
from the Australian PGA, and this is not happening. You're not playing a course which only has 3 par 5s.
Yeah.
And my point is then that where's the rule book here for having an Olympic Games in your city? So where you go, hang on a sec, if you want golf to be in there, we're changing the rule book a bit here, okay, and we're going to sex it up. Otherwise,
we'll change it. Yeah, like rugby sevens.
Yeah,
yeah,
If you want to be in it, okay, we're changing it a bit. Okay, it's not the Queensland PGA. This is the Olympic golf. It's almost a different sport.
Okay, so European handball. Should we just do schoolyard handball?
Well,
for Brisbane 2032.
I'd completely forgotten. European handball is actually an Olympic sport, isn't it?
Yes.
It is. And yes. I get that it's big in Sweden. Yes. I get that. But we could bring it down to 4 squares.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would have thought so.
Why not?
Well, I've heard that
at least have a conversation about it.
Yeah, and the archery might be a problem at South Bank. They'd originally thought they might do it there, but there's some issue with you can't have it near water because it changes the airflow.
Yes.
Or something.
See, I was thinking Queen Street Mall for that, but that could be a problem.
The archery, Queen Street Mall.
Yeah.
Just straight down the guts.
Why not? Why not? That's what I'm saying. Why not?
Past the iconic Hungry Jack's.
I wouldn't have a beer at the Pig and Whistle that day. Probably close that for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But why not, is what I'm saying. At least throw it out on the table, have people explain to me why you can't.
Yeah.
Well, again, we haven't got billions of dollars to build, so let's use the natural, in inverted commas, landscape.
So you stand at Jimmy's.
Yeah. It'd have to be flat.
Oh no, big pig and whistle down the bottom there.
Yeah.
And what do you shoot an?
You shoot an arrow.
And is it? And then you have to have it at Hungry Jack's because you're talking about you then tell the story of
what
children before mobile phones. We all used to meet at 1 o'clock at Hungry Jack's.
You're actually shooting past a strip club there. You're shooting past showgirls. That's never been done in Olympic history before. But I'm saying,
LA might have a crack. But
that's true, actually. Yeah. It's that one on Sunset. No, I've forgotten.
So schoolyard handball at Southbank.
Yeah.
Just a demonstration sport. That'd be amazing.
Or we all these jokes we talk about. Let's all at the very least, there's kids that have an opportunity to play it. Handball, our handball. So that's your second level of interaction for the kids.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean.
Beyond
like
the
an
official,
activation.
Yeah, activations, like fun things like that. But
just have a handball tournament outside the TV studios, so then the world gets to see
at the IBC
schoolyard handball at the IBC.
100%. Yeah, there was actually a similar activation at World Expo.
I feel like this is the creative, task force. I feel like this podcast has turned into the Brisbane 2032 creative task force.
It's not going to be all the time, but from the times when we're gibbering, I'm actually very passionate about your legacy thing. I think that's brilliant. I think that's going to be a game changer. So we've got to, there's parts of that as well. And I think the other point is you can hit us up on Instagram at Toward the Games. Make sure you subscribe as well. But if you have thoughts, hit us up. If you have people that you think need to be involved in this, hit us up. Because I'm just spitballing here about people that I've crossed in my travels that I think would be well suited to some of these positions. But there's probably other people out there we're not thinking of, or maybe you think you if you're listening.
All right, let's see.
That's enough for today.
My Olympic gold medal quest is to get Chelsea War on the next episode of this podcast. There you go. Put it out there.
That's going to be a cracker if we can get her. Honestly, that's going to be amazing if we can get her. Talk us through that program, but also a bunch of other things that she's involved in.
Okay, let's you got to have goals.
Yep.
I know you've got your goals down there at the gym you've just started going to.
I've just started going to the gym again.
5 minutes of
biceps.
And then followed by a massage.
What I call anti-man boob, which I think is a bench press.
Yeah.
And then I get a massage, ice bath,
little
infrared sauna.
Bling Wen was sort of doing a...
What?
Moving around on you as you were doing that on you.
Was it? Yeah, that's the development. Already, see? Okay. Subscribe. Toward the Games. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Enjoy Brisbane 32.